Hello everyone! Today is an exciting day. Over the past couple of months, I've worked on many different custom code projects. And today, I want to show all of them to you. Because no, I didn't just fall asleep or fell off or anything like that. Over the past couple of months, I have made a grand total of 7 new custom objects, 3 patches, 1 complete overhaul of a vanilla object from Mario Galaxy 2, and to top it all off, I ported a boss from Mario Galaxy 1. And today, I'm going to show all of that to you. If you want to try any of these in action and play them for yourself, you can check out the showcase mod that I linked in the description below. It's basically just a compilation of vanilla levels that I modified so that it shows off the new custom objects well. Make sure you stick around to the end of this video though, because the deeper in you get, the crazier it gets. So, have a seat. One moment. And I hope you enjoy. In the original SMG2, you're only able to have 3 clouds normally. However, there was a patch back in the day that allowed you to have 16 clouds by essentially breaking out of a loop early. But I have now created version 2.0, which now lets you specify any amount of clouds. Simply copy the patch from the video description and change the 2 X's to the number of clouds you want to have. Do note, however, that this number is in hexadecimal, so you have to use the hexadecimal system to represent your number. Specifying any amount over 16 will simply just result in 16 clouds, however, because only 16 are being allocated. Maybe there's a way to fix that, but I think this honestly is good enough because 16 clouds should be plenty for most people. Next up, we have a pretty obscure patch, but I honestly like how this turned out. So you know this big boo that chases you around with 4 smaller child boos? Well, I found out something pretty interesting about this guy. You see, he is hard-coded to spawn exactly 4 boos, but actually not in the typical way. You see, to allocate the boos, the game simply runs a loop a total of 4 times. It actually determines how often the loop runs based on a member variable of the Teresa Atomic. This would mean that you would simply have to change the variable to any amount of child boos and they would be flexible. I think they were honestly planning to make this an OBJ arg, but then decided, you know what, we only need 4 boos, we don't need anything more flexible than that. Well, with this patch, I have now turned this exact thing back into an OBJ arg. Just specify any number in OBJ arg 3 and the Teresa Atomic will have that many child boos. Now in the vanilla game, without making any additional changes, you can have anywhere from 0 to 4 boos. However, if you don't do any other changes and specify 5 boos, the game will crash. This is not because it's limited to 4, but actually because the game doesn't know what position to load the boo into. Thankfully, there is a very simple way to fix that. Go into the Teresa Atomic archive, specifically into the actor info folder. You will see that there are 4 BCSV files that are already specified, namely follower 1, 2, 3, and 4. In order to add a 5th boo, we also need to add another BCSV, and the easiest way I found of doing this was to export using WeExplorer and then re-import and rename to follower number 5. You can then open this up in Whitehole Neo's BCSV editor, and you can specify any of the bone names that Teresa Atomic naturally has, as well as a offset and a rotation to that. If you're confused to what bones it's referring to, you can actually take a look at Teresa Atomic Position Archive, which contains a BDL that contains all of these bones. So you can use that to figure out where your next follower boo should be. Now after doing all of this, you also need to open initSensor.bcsv and then add another one for the follower 5 boo that we just created. The rest of the data should be the same as all of the other ones, being enemy as the sensor type, radius 200, 8 as the hit sensor num max, nothing for the joint name and callback, the offset should be 0, and This flag, I don't actually know what it means, should be set to O or true. And after you've done that, there should be a 5th boo successfully when you spawn into the game. My patch makes it that you can do this with any amount of child boos, so long as you follow this procedure every time. Now imagine this scenario for a second. You're playing on Dolphin emulator, like a greedy pirate, and you come across a level that just has a sign saying "You suck" and a pipe that leads you to play the entirety of Grandmaster Galaxy. Silly you, because if you actually played the exact same level on real hardware, like a real Nintendo fan, there would have just been a launch star, and through that, you could have gotten the star very easily. What do you do when playing on Dolphin emulator? And no, this is not just a fever dream you're having, this is actually something you can do now thanks to the Dolphin switch area. The idea is very simple. You just have an area, and when Mario enters it and the player is playing on Dolphin emulator, it will turn its SWA on. And that's it basically. For my setup, I basically just added a switch synchronizer reverse that turns on another switch which spawns the launch star if SWA is not activated. But you see, there was actually a trick this whole time, because all you had to do was to side flip or back flip and fall from the back flip, and there you go. How is this possible? This is another area that I made, and I think it actually turned out pretty cool. Now the game actually has a state system that check if Mario is in the air, is touching a wall, is being damaged, is being blown, and all kinds of stuff. Using Mario's state switch area, you're able to turn this state system into a switch mechanism. Simply set obj_arg0 to any number of each state that you want, and then once Mario is in the area and performs an action that makes the status turn on, then the area turns on its SWA switch and you're able to move on. Now, this on its own is pretty cool, but there is actually another thing that I discovered, and that is very strange. You see, the Mario class in this game has a bit field at offset 0xc that tracks all of this and more. We don't really know how this bit field is laid out just yet, but we have found out a couple of useful bits of information, and so I decided to also build this into Mario's state switch area. You can simply set obj_arg1 to any bit field value it should check for. The way I implemented this means that either the status check code you provide with obj_arg0 or the bit field you provide in obj_arg1 needs to be correct. Now, because we know so little of this bit field and it's very hard to judge what number you have to input, I also added obj_arg3, which is a debug mode. The debug mode will OS record every frame that Mario is in the area, informing you what bit field value Mario currently has. So then you can simply perform the action you want, pause the game, and then take the bit field value and put it into obj_arg1. And just like that, the player will have to perform the exact action to trigger the switch again. This next patch I'm going to show you is one of the simplest ones, but it is something that has been requested a bunch, and I honestly really wanted this myself, so I'm glad that it worked out. The pipe is one of the most versatile objects in all of Super Mario Galaxy. Nonetheless though, it is still lacking some features. For example, you cannot make a pipe appear out of the ground just by turning on a switch, which is a bit of a bummer, but with this new patch, that is fixed and you can actually make it work. For my showcase mod though, I also decided to just make a few colors because, I mean, why not? I think the silver one honestly looks the best. It's really cool. But yeah, none of this is custom code, obviously, so you could just make your own pipe colors. And in fact, many people have actually done that in the past. So the main patch here is just adding SW appear support. Now this next object is actually a decompiled one, but it's not from SMG1, it's actually from Super Mario Orbit. If you watched my video on playing the game, you might know that I've been trying to decompile the entirety of Orbit as its source code, who was originally created by Hakio, was lost in its entirety. And that includes these Kinoko trampolines, which were originally from Super Mario 3D World. And they are now back in business and ready for you to use as a module. The way they work is simply by adding a product map OBJ class, so if you want to use them, you will have to add them to the product map OBJ table. They also can be placed on a path, and they also have SWA support. This is honestly a really cool custom object, and I'm glad to have recovered it because I just like having more options for trampolines, and this one really fits well, in my opinion. But you wanna know what might just be cooler than having a ported object? Having an object that you actually made yourself. I have been endlessly working on this project, it feels like. But now I am pleased to say that I finally got it working. The way it works is very simple. You just place it on a path, and then you are able to either step onto the left tile or the right tile, and then you can move the platform in that direction. On top of this, it also supports a couple of extra features that I added, like for example, SWA support. If SWA is turned off, the arrows turn black like this, and the platform is not able to move. I also added SWB support, which is turned on when you're riding the platform. But that's not all. You can also specify a maximum speed by using obj-arg0. Usually the acceleration is 1 unit per frame, which means that it takes 30 frames or half a second to speed up to max speed, but this can obviously be changed to be faster. Either way, I learned a lot while making this platform. It's probably not perfect, but at this point I'm just glad to have it done and be in a functional state. But you want to know what's even cooler than having a 2-directional switchboard? Having a 4-directional platform. Now, if you're a Mario historian, so to speak, you might realize that this actually comes from Super Mario 64. And it would be very simple if I just kept it at that, and it probably wouldn't have been so late into the video. But then I decided to go a step further, because I decided to make the arrows completely customizable. You could first of all specify the amount of arrows that you actually want on the platform by specifying a number for obj-arg1, but the crazier part of this is that you can also specify where the arrows are. And you can actually have multiple platforms with different arrow configurations at the same time. And here's how this works. With the module, you will be given a custom arrow step.arg, and this will be the base for all of your arrow step adventures. Now by default, this will just feature the 4 arrows we just talked about, but you are able to change any of them by changing the bones. You can simply do this by using ReStudio, or if you want a visual editor, you can use Blender for this as well. Essentially, you can move the bones and rotate them any way that you want, and the way that they're rotated and where they are placed will determine where the arrows go. Once I've done that, I simply just convert back using SuperBMD, and then once that happens, I just name my custom arrow platform, which in this case, I'm going to call Diagonal Arrow Step. But once you've done that, you simply go into the product map OBJ data table and add your entry with the class custom arrow step, and just like that, you will have your own custom arrow platform. This is by far one of the greatest objects that I have made, in my opinion. It was just so cool being able to add this flexible, non-hard-coded system, and I personally think it is a nice evolution to the original 4-way arrow step that you had in Mario 64. Now, if you're anything like me, then there was one object that you discovered while modding Mario Galaxy that was honestly really lame. For me, that object was Jump Stand Auto, which are the trampolines from Yoshi Star Galaxy. These honestly have a lot of potential. These could honestly be one of the most used objects, if not for the fact that Nintendo basically put 0 effort into them. But I did. the warp box. It works very simply, like you would expect. The player simply goes into the warp box and gets warped to another side. The interesting thing about this is that it actually works very similar to a pipe, and I did that on purpose. You are able to specify a horizontal and vertical force by changing OBJ-arg0 and 1 respectively. OBJ-arg2 allows you to specify whether the player should be able to enter the warp box after you exit it once. The warp box also writes to SWB when it's entered. I might also add additional features to this in the future because I do think it could be expanded a little bit, but for now I'm happy with what we have. And now, the final main event of today, the boss port from SMG1. I am honestly in shock that I managed to do this, but here we are. This is Water Bazooka, otherwise known as the Water Underground Gunner, seen in multiple SMG1 galaxies. I have managed to port this one almost correctly. The aim function is sort of a mess still, and I don't know why. But besides that, it is actually completely functional and works the same way as in SMG1. If someone can help me figure out this aim function, please, I beg of you, because I do not know what I did wrong here, at all. The same class is also used for Electric Bazooka, by the way, so you can also use that. So now that I've showed you all of these cool new modules, you're probably wondering, how do I test them out myself? Well folks, there's no better time than right now, because I'm here to officially announce SyatiManager version 3. That's right. If you've been using SyatiManager before, then you probably know that it's just a very basic command line interface. But now, the VTXG has been cooking up a graphical user interface and a complete redo of SyatiManager to bring you SyatiManager version 3. I can't believe we're at this point. I can't believe we just have the power to make custom graphical user interfaces. I wouldn't know how. This is a super cool new tool that is hopefully going to make things very simple to understand. Anyway, that's been it for me today. As you can see, I have not fallen off. I hope you like these modules that I've given you. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.